commence with our meeting. My name is Muzuvugile Wiseman Mkize. I'm the full-time regulator member, primary responsible for petroleum pipelines regulation, and I'll be chairing today's meeting. This is the petroleum pipelines meeting number 205 of the 3rd of June 2026, scheduled for 9 till 12 a.m. This is the South African Standard Time, and it's held primarily via Microsoft Teams, as we can hear us and it being published and via Microsoft Teams and various platforms that NERSA has access to. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome not only the members of this subcommittee, but management and staff of NERSA, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. Having said that, I would then like to introduce the members of the subcommittee with no particular order followed. And let me start off with gentlemen this time around. I have Mr. Fungai Sibanda, who is a part-time regulator member, as well as a chairperson of the GTI, the ITGC, which is the Information Technology Governance Committee, and a member of various committees of NERSA, as well as the ER. Mr. Sibanda.
Good morning, Chair, NERSA colleagues and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Also, I've got Willie Machola, who is the full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for electricity regulation, a member of various subcommittees and committees of the energy regulator, as well as a member of the energy regulator. Mr. Machola, over to you, sir.
Good morning, Chair, and a good morning to the fellow members. Also, a good morning to all the staff at NERSA, and also a very good morning to all the members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Machola. I also have got Advocate Nomalanga Stole, who is the CEO of NERSA, as well as a member of various committees and subcommittees of the energy regulator and the energy regulator itself. Over to you, Advocate Stole.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning to NERSA personnel and everyone who has joined us for this PPS meeting this morning. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Advocate Tole. I also have Madam Nomfundo Maseti, who is the full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for pipe gas regulation, a member of various committees and subcommittees of the energy regulator, as well as the energy regulator itself. Over to you, Madam Maseti.
Good morning to you, Chairperson, members of the committee, and everyone who has joined this meeting. On a lighter note, Chairperson, I became concerned when you said the meeting is scheduled to proceed until 12 a.m. I suppose that time I will be sleeping, Chairperson. It will be a very long day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Madam Maseti. Yes, it's scheduled till 12 midday. If it goes that way, you must just toy. I also have Madam Ria Kavenda in absentia. She apologized, tendered an apology for this meeting due to a bereavement, and she's the deputy chairperson of NERSA. We will continue with our meeting since we co-rate. We then proceed to the adoption of the agenda. We'll proceed as is with the agenda. I don't know if there are any changes suggested, except for the withdrawal of item 14 for consideration in this meeting. By show of hands, members, if you adopt the agenda with that change. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Majola, Advocate Tole, Mr. Sbanda. I also support the adoption of the agenda. We'll then move to the declaration of interest, members. Any interest to declare by show of hands, members, management, and staff? I see no hand. With that, I would just request that you please fill in the form, the declaration of interest form, and share them with the Secretariat, Madam Maswanganyi. We'll then move to the submissions for today's meeting. For the open meeting, we'll start off with item 5 here, which is a draft decision review of the rolled-in tariff approach used in determining Transnet's SOC Limited's tariff for its petroleum pipeline system. Madam Twa and your team, over to you, being conscious of the time.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members and colleagues and the members of the public. Indeed, we do have the draft decision, which is here in front of us for members noting and approval that we publish this decision for a review of the rolled-in tariff approach using determining Transnet SOC Limited tariffs for its petroleum pipeline system. I will allow Mr. Gaba to quickly touch on salient issues and guide the members to the decision and why we would want this draft decision to be published. Mr. Gaba.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to the members, as well as the staff and colleagues. We would like to maybe highlight that we duly note Mr. Choke's correction in terms of the delegation metrics, which we had relied on section 4.1. We'll amend to reflect that section 1.6 of the delegation matrix when it comes to the approval of the publishing of the draft decision. In terms of the purpose of the submission, we would like to request the PPS to note the draft decision on the review of the rolled-in tariff approach used in determining Transnet SOC Limited's tariffs for the petroleum pipeline system, as well as approve the publishing of the draft decision for public consultation, as attached to in the documents as Annexure A. In the PPS of March 2026, the members noted the progress on the project and gave inputs. The team has since conducted further enhancements based on the information that was received from key stakeholders and confirmed by NERSA through a series of meetings, site visits, as well as studies that we looked into and verifications in order to come up with a draft decision for public consultation. The draft decision represents a culmination of this intensive evidence gathering and preliminary analytical phase. However, it is not a final determination. Rather, it is issued to enable additional focused consultation to allow stakeholders to interrogate the provisional regulatory position, as well as test the robustness of the proposed approach. Also identify any unintended consequences and submit further evidence before the energy regulator reaches a final legally defensible decision. Members, the approach was to address and confirm the stakeholder submissions that were received,
from the key stakeholders, as well as any additional information that the team had requested as per the energy regulators or the members' instructions. We also conducted a socio-economic impact study with our modeling results based on 2 scenarios. The full incremental approach, as well as the second scenario showing the results if we maintain the rolled-in approach, but apply a particular discount to that. Also, we did a proper legal interpretation in terms of determining the difference between the pipeline system and versus individual pipelines. We also did your market and technical analysis as per the members' advice, looking at closeness of substitution through our competition analysis by applying standard market definition principles. We also considered considerations from NERSA in the document, which are a deep dive since the inputs from the March PPS, which were looking at Cecil's differential proposal, as well as the principle of non-discrimination through our own legal analysis, as well as a regulatory scope looking at the hidden or the concerns around the hidden subsidy, as well as operational feasibility by applying the implementation of mechanisms. And all of these then led to the recommended decision, as well as rationale for that recommendation, with the logical approach of all these confirmations, considerations, with the recommended approach emerged as a logical conclusion, which is the recommended solution being a hybrid rolled-in approach, but differentiated. And we also have an implementation plan that we also included in the document as a way forward. With that said, members, hoping that the members have gone through the document with all of the sections that I've highlighted, we would like to recommend that the PPS note the draft decision and also approve the publication thereof for it to be put out for public consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kaba. Members, as you recall that tariffs actually they fit into the fuel prices, which remain regulated in our country. And these pipelines, they, for intents and purposes, are serving the same market. And the issue is, whilst you must have a rolled-in tariff, one considers the differential or the differences when one looks at the crude oil pipeline as opposed to the NMPP and others, and then be able to factor that difference when one considers a tariff in the face of the regulation of the fuel prices themselves as a pass-through cost, and therefore seeking not to unduly disadvantage where there is no recovery of that cost in full for one of the pipelines because of how things are structured. So it is mainly along those lines. And I hope you recall, members, also that this process, when we started the process, we then found ourselves in the middle of litigation that is related to this issue of the pipeline. But after some engagements, even with SASO themselves, was that we proceed with our process of review, apart from the issues that were still brewing regarding the litigation that is about that differential being affected in the prices in the tariff that is for 2024-25, and now also proceeding to 25-26. So these are just the issues that we need to be sensitive about. But the situation is as presented in the submission, and I take it that we are right in dealing with it as read. We're going for the second round so that there is clarity in terms of what the position we're leaning towards, so that there can be a refinement of that position as part of also admission that as a regulator, we don't have the monopoly of wisdom, and at the same time, we do adhere to the prescripts, legal prescripts requiring us to engage meaningfully and consulting with the public. Let me leave it at that, members. If you've got any questions, comments, guidance to provide to the team still, please do by show of hands. I don't see any hands. Oh, yes, Mr. Sbanda's hand. Mr. Sbanda over, and then Madam Maseti, in that order, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team as well. I guess we have dealt with this issue previously, and I suppose it's good that we take it to the public and get views, although we have conducted hearings previously on this, but I suppose it's still beneficial, I guess, to still get comments. The one thing that perhaps would be, or rather was keen to see, and maybe let me just say up front that I'm comfortable with the recommendation or the position that we are taking around the hybrid model. The only question that I had, so I see we've done a comparison of the three approaches, but what I've not seen is the quantitative analysis thereof. So our comparison is probably very judgment based, looking at various components. If you look at table 14, for instance, but I would also have loved to see. I would have loved to see a quantitative analysis comparison of the different approaches, particularly what is the impact of the hybrid approach. So for me, maybe that's the one thing that I probably couldn't see or was looking for in the analysis. But by and large, I don't have a problem with the position that we are taking, and hopefully then we get further comments from the public. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. Madam Maseti, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Chairperson, I just want to start off with the decision that is sought, just so that I can be comfortable whether we can take this kind of a decision. Firstly, that we note the draft decision. I am uncomfortable with that because I'm afraid that first of all, I don't know if we do have powers to consult on a draft decision. That is the first thing. that so if this is just an improved version of the document that was out there, and having taken into consideration the views of stakeholders during the written comments as well as during the public hearing, and therefore we believe that a lot has changed as a result of those views, then we want to take an improved version out there. I would rather not characterize it as a draft decision, but as an improved version, and then we can just test the views of the stakeholders, their reaction on that improved version of the document, and just ask specific questions. So for me, I would have preferred it that way, Chairperson, just for ensuring that there are no comebacks, in terms of what we ourselves selected to call it a draft decision, and then we deviate later on. I am basing this on the previous challenge that we had with in PPR, actually, with regards to what was called sort of preliminary assessments. That then required us to explain that it is not the thinking or the way that the regulator is going to take the decision per se. And hence then it became a discussion document at that time. So there were just those legal challenges and the interpretation. So I'm just concerned about that. And then again, we approve this draft decision for publication. So I'm a bit worried about that, Chairperson. Perhaps we can, in the meantime, reframe what is it that we would like to take out there, having the explanation that I have provided, because I do fully understand the transparency that you are trying to put in, and also the meaningful engagement that you are pursuing with stakeholders, following all of the input that has been received and the improvements that you have made. And now you are saying to stakeholders, this is how it would look like. And if it looks like this, then please give us your final inputs on in the way that this can be proceeded with this option as a scenario, and these are the associated pros and cons, and then the other one will be this and the associated pros and cons. So if it takes that route, and that is the intention, I would rather perhaps not frame it in this manner for the decision that is sought in the regulator and set a precedent. Thank you, Chair. And then, Chairperson, just getting into the substance of what is proposed. Firstly, Chair, I wanted to fully understand this incremental tariff from a perspective of there is nothing wrong with it, but just from the perspective of the burden on the ability to pay for those customers that must now carry all of the capital cost as well as operational costs of the infrastructure. Some of it is new infrastructure or infrastructure to be built, given the list of what you have provided us in the first pages, even the accumulation tanks and the accumulation facility, and some of the infrastructure that is not yet completed. So it means that if then this incremental approach is adopted, have we then looked at the burden that this would impose on those customers that must be pay the incremental tariff? Yes, it will be ring-fenced, those costs, and only those that triggered the expansion or the newly built infrastructure that must carry the cost, instead of the cost being paid by all customers. I just wanted to check that aspect from a perspective of the ability to pay or affordability and the burden that would have. otherwise, there is nothing wrong with incremental, but we must also just look now at the circumstances of the case and the industry and the people that, or those customers that are supposed to carry all of those costs. And then Chairperson, in terms of going to the issue of just the volumes again that would go with that. I think if one looks at the what you call the capacity that would be part of the incremental tariff, and then looking at the volumes, the throughput into that. Will that again is something that we need to again look at in terms of assessing the impact itself. And I think this actually ties up with the question raised by Mr. Sibanda, because if you take the first point on that ability to pay, include this with sort of a dummy example of this incremental, just so that you demonstrate, and then you show that if we have this capacity, that will fall within the incremental, and then in this capacity, the approximate volume that will go through this for X amount of customers and these X volumes, we are likely to get this kind of outcome. And then that kind of outcome will then be that revenue that will be required, as well as the tariff. And then you are able then to tell whether this is affordable when you compare it with the current tariffs that we are approving. So in that way, you are dealing with that quantitative assessment, and you are showing directly what the outcome is going to be. And I suppose the team ought to have just done that just in addition, so that they can show, the outcome of this incremental from a practical point of view. Then the other thing, Chairperson, maybe in terms of just the price shocks, if they can also just brief us in terms of the past of the price shocks, having done what they call the cost benefit, as they indicated to us. So if they have done so, have they come up with some findings that show whether there will be the practical burden of sort of the new capital expenditure, or including the one that is still need to be completed, and even the one that is already there, but then is going to be borne by certain customers, not the entire customers. So if they can just inform us about those. I would like to leave it here, Chairperson, for now, and then pending the responses from the team. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Over to you, Advocate Chole.
Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity, but I've taken my hand down because I was covered with Ms. Maseti's first point of clarity on the objective of taking this draft decision out to stakeholders for comments. And it saves to add that it may seem to be contrary to one of our regulatory principles, which says that we must be independent in our decision-making process. So I just thought that maybe if we can be given clarity on that, that will also be helpful. That's, hence I took my hand down, because I thought she has covered the point I wanted to make. Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Advocate Chole. Noting that there's an issue that talks to a matter of legality or law. Maybe Mr. Chogo and Lars, if you may come in, the first ones to talk to this, not just changing the wording in terms of dealing with the draft decision, putting the draft decision forward, but use the improved version of the discussion document that has taken due cognizance of the first round of consultations, wording along those lines. What's your take? Mr. Chogwe?
Thank you, Chairperson. Madam Mercedes is spot on, Chairperson, that we don't consult with draft decisions, but as she said, maybe indeed we have to word it in such a way that we want to improve on the contents of the document rather than actually calling it a decision. It's true that it might be having features of the decision in it, but we don't consult on decisions, but we can consult in terms of improving the document. She was just so spot on. Thanks, Chairperson. But Mr. Mbezi is here in the meeting, can also come in. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chogwe. Mr. Mbezi, may we
Thank you, I agree with Mr. Chogwe and Madam Mercedes, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. So, team, just modify the submission accordingly to take into cognizance the matters raised. It's a second round of consultations, having duly incorporated comments from the first round of consultations. Mr. Swanda, over to you, sir.
Yeah, Chair. Chair, I don't have a problem with the recommendation. I just wanted to indicate that there are regulators out there, because not everything can be black and white at times, but there are regulators that actually do consult on a draft decision. They call it a draft decision. You consult, and then you publish a final decision, depending on what the comments say and all of that. We also have regulators that call it a draft finding. You consult, then you have a final finding. But I don't have a problem with us being cautious around these things. So, but I just wanted to put it out that it's not something new. There is precedent out there, unless, of course, our law prohibits it. Then I don't have a problem, Chair. But I just wanted to point out that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swanda. That is highly appreciated. I think what is going to be important, Mr. Mbezi and your team, in conjunction with Mr. Chogwe, if we may just look at it as a next step or matter rising, just to have a view so that we don't limit ourselves unduly so, but it serves well that we, for now, tread cautiously and follow the recommendation that we crafted as a second round of consultation following the initial consultations and the incorporation of the comments provided therefrom. If we go to that, we then proceed, members, and get the team to respond on the other questions. Mr. Kabe and the team, please, briefly, to the point.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe if I start with Mr. Sbanda's request in terms of a quantitative analysis or a comparison of the approaches. I think we will, going forward, we'll then try and tailor make it to Mr. Sbanda's request. However, in the document, we do have maybe what might be considered as quantitative, especially with table 5 showing the tariff impacts of incremental versus the rolled in, and the information that was used was based on the Transnet information for the 25-26 application, where we had all of the information in terms of the actual volumes as well as the actual allowable revenue for that period. So it allowed us to have a table, which is that table 5, to calculate your different tariffs under the incremental, as well as it allowed us to be able to determine tariffs that are split between the different pipelines, and then we were able to then have tariffs under each of the incremental, as well as or to compare between the incremental as well as the approved rolled in tariff. We also, in conducting the socio-economic impact assessment on a macro level, we also had to submit information to the consultants in order to be able to have that determination. We also had to give them numbers based on what the tariffs would look like in an incremental scenario and the impact thereof, as well as also the suggestion in terms of our recommendation, Chair, what the numbers would look like. And this was applied for the 2025-26 FY, as well as the 26-27 FY, based on what was approved or what was set by the energy regulator for Transnet tariff pipeline. So we do have an attempt on that, but I think I understand where Mr. Sibanda is coming from, and we can definitely put that, include a table with that comparison after the one that he has mentioned. In terms of Ms. Maseti's comments, maybe I might go into the results of the socio-economic impact assessment, which mainly look at the impact of the scenarios or the recommendation, the status quo, and also the incremental on socio-economic issues. Maybe my colleagues can come in to assist if I don't fully address it, but in the document, what we can enhance is to go into maybe looking at the impact on maybe the potential customers, rather than what we have done is to look at the impact on households as well as the GDP, in a sense, because as far as the estimates that we have provided in terms of your tables, just want to get the particular tables or the section rather, that deals with it in the document. From page.
Sorry, Mr. Kavu. In the I think
Chair, your network is bad.
It's very important to know.
Person, you are not audible. You've got to start.
Because what did happen? And then the thing is that
Chairperson, please try
Yes.
again, Chairperson. Start from the beginning. You were not audible at all, and a lot of people were trying to make you aware. If you can kindly start from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. What I'm saying is that these, like we said, these pipelines are serving the same market at the end of the day, and the price at the end to the consumer will be one price because it is a regulated price. And now you have a situation where when you get through the COP, you then have got that blob, which is the refinery, which then would take certain products, you will refine, and then you continue. Just see it as a continuum pipeline, right? So if it has gone via that route, it means that those that have gone via that route will not recover all the cost going to cost the tariff. And therefore, they would be selling at a loss as compared to the one that is running through the NMPP. Now, if the NMPP goes very high, you still have to factor that into the fuel price. And at the end of the day, that fuel price would be higher. And the ones that have of transportation,
Mr. Ntanzi,
also
can you
result
please
in the product from
Mr. Chairperson. Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, check RSU is trying to help you there. Your network is bad. We can't hear you.
Maybe log out and come back, Chair. Maybe that can help. Yes.
Okay, let me log out and come back. But just help me, Advocate Story and Chair Solong.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Members, as requested, I will stand in a bit for Mr. Mkhize, but I think he was trying to make his own contribution. Whilst waiting for him, may I just get from the members if the responses that have been given by the team have been have covered the issues that they've raised. Ms. Masetti, I saw some of your notes in the chat, but I haven't had the chance to read all of them. May you please come in on them, or let me take Mr. Sibanda. His hand is up. Mr. Sibanda.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I do hear Mr. Gaba, right, and yes, I saw the analysis on the rolled-in and incremental approaches. But the point I was making is that if you are gravitating towards a hybrid approach, I think you also need to then have or show what the impact of that approach would be. So for me, it doesn't just end at just the incremental and rolled-in approaches, but then what about the hybrid approach that you are also discussing, and what was the analysis around that? So that's what I was perhaps referring to, and the table 14 that I was referring to. Yes, it does have the comparison, but of the three, but that's just a qualitative comparison. Hence, I was saying what's missing for me is just the quantitative aspect that shows the impact in numbers. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda, for that. Mr. Mkhize, I see you are back. Do you want to take over? I think Mr. Sibanda was emphasizing or rather reiterating his question to Mr. Gaba, and maybe we can allow Mr. Gaba to come in and respond on the questions raised with regard to the impact of the hybrid rolled-in approach that he has mentioned, and as well as the issues raised in relation to table 14. Mr. Gaba, you may come in, and I will now hand over to you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I duly note the inputs from Mr. Sibanda, and yeah, just to say, I noted the table 14 where we have the qualitative analysis or the description between the three options, which is the current state of score, which is the rolled in, without any adjustments or differentials, and then the incremental approach itself, as well as the hybrid. The hybrid being the rolled in, but implementing then a sort of a differential to it. What we will then do is to maybe, well, not maybe, what we'll then do is to also do a quantitative analysis. I think I was just highlighting that there was an attempt or a calculation done when we had to do a macroeconomic impact analysis as well, where we submitted a tariff based on the incremental approach, as well as the approved rolled in itself currently, and then applied an adjustment to it. So we will simply just highlight that so that to satisfy the members. Maybe just to note that the is in terms of say the section 6, which contains the socioeconomic impact assessment in the document from pages 55 to 63. There's also an additional appendix A to the decision, as well as an extra that gives the complete that document, or the complete assessment itself. Thank you, ma'am. I'll end it right there.
Thank you, Mr. Kaba. I think, can you hear me? Am I audible now? Just a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think in essence, Mr. Kaba, just add the quantitative table indicating the three scenarios, incremental, hybrid, and fully rolled in. And when you're doing the analysis, be very clear with the issue of the price being regulated at the end of the day, that the full impact of these differences will not necessarily be felt at the end of the day, but they would get what is the highest tariff as the one that will then prevail in the market. Just be able to, when you're dealing with that aspect, to incorporate that, because it deals then with the matters that Madam Massetti has raised. Okay, members, any further questions? Yes, Madam Massetti.
A chairperson, for me, is not necessarily questions, but I think you can see that the team, the way that they have structured even the impact, they ought to just to give some impetus on the market definition findings. It was then important to then start from there, because that market definition, it kind of deals with issues of interchangeability as well as the market power. So from our side then, as we deal with whether incremental or even the hybrid itself, from our perspective as a regulator, it is important that we look at the impact on the market when we choose this. And the reason for that, the market as well as the market design, meaning that as you now looked into the hybrid, who are the likely players or the customers that are going to be the ones that are affected by that or by the incremental, so that you can understand that impact on the market and on the customers themselves that are a part of that market. So the market design outcomes are quite important from that perspective. So I'm trying to make sure that the team, with the kind of work that they've done, they're now moving properly, step by step, showing and displaying that in terms of the outcomes, and it is in line with what I've indicated. And the reason is to prevent market power, even if it's a monopoly power from the other parties, and then there's a burden for those that do not have any form of countervailing power at all, as well as to limit any adverse impact of discrimination, like even the price differentiation that others may have canvassed for. So you limit that impact, because that impact would mean that there is a part that those customers that are going to be captive, meaning that they must carry the burden of all of those capital costs and operational costs that come with the incremental. They carry that alone. So that burden, as a regulator, you must foresee beforehand in your analysis as we're coming up with this. And that is why and I'm coming up with this so that it makes it easy for customers to then, for the team to then be able to get to that quantitative assessment that Mr. Sibanda is talking about. And that's why I said if they were to even, after they've done what we've just guided, then they will demonstrate it by way of an example to say, well, what we are proposing, this is how it would look like. If we're to plug in figures on this, this could be the likely outcome. Then you are able to show that practical outcome. And then the risk of incremental tariffs that must also be be dealt with, and really to emphasize on the initial point of the demand. Remember that demand that I was talking about, the capacity of the incremental infrastructure, as well as the throughput to that incremental infrastructure that you consider to be incremental, and where the tariff is going to be looked at. So there's a number of things that we can also look at, also in other jurisdictions, how they navigate as the regulator to look into such things. I know that in gas, we are also confronted with that issue of the incremental infrastructure. And I can tell you the tariff is quite high. And then it forces us to then do an average, a weighted average a tariff, and also the volumes, but in the end, not in the front end. So that becomes a bit of a problem because it's one pipeline starting from Temane in Mozambique, and then it ends in Secunda. But then there are certain improvements which are called incremental. But there is no gas that will go into those loops and those additions alone. They will not reach customers. So although they don't want a pooled system, and that is because of, from our side, is because of the legacy of the regulatory agreement from our side. But it is there, and we are dealing with it. We did not like it, and unfortunately, we need to balance the investment risk and not to tamper with intergovernmental agreements that are there. That was the only reason from the gas side of things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tim. You make those enhancements and ensure that you have that table looking at now the quantitative analysis. The quantitative analysis that you have done is highly appreciated. Just add that and also look at the issues of market structure as already articulated. With that, members, I will then go to the recommendation, which is on page 21 of 324, which is 14.1. It is recommended that the PPS notes the enhanced discussion document on the review of the road-in tariff approach used in determining Transnet SOC Limited's tariffs for its Petroleum pipeline system, and approves the publishing of the enhanced discussion document on the review of the road-in tariff approach used in determining Transnet SOC Limited tariffs for its Petroleum pipeline system, attached here to under Annexure A for public comment. By show of hands, members, noting the other enhancements that must accompany that. Thank you, Madam Massetti, Mr. Majola, Advocate Stole, Mr. Sibanda. I also support. This then concludes item 5, taking us to item 6, which is the Strategic Fuel Funds Association's first application to amend conditions of a license issued to it for the construction of a marine loading facility in Saldanha Bay, Western Cape Province, is here for approval. Over to you, Madam Chair and your team. Please be conscious of time.
Thank you, Chair. Without wasting time, may I allow Ms. Mahamata to take us through the submission? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and good morning, members, chairperson, and colleagues in the meeting. Chair, the amendment under consideration is for the license issued to SFF in September 2023, where the construction was initially required to start by March of 2025, but was then later extended upon request from the licensee to June 2025. To date, Chair, the construction has not commenced, placing the licensee in non-compliance with its construction license conditions. And so the amendment applied for is exactly to remedy that non-compliance. The reasons provided by the applicant for not meeting the stipulated timelines in terms of the project commencement are mainly due to delays within their own internal approval processes, which resulted in the rejection of the actual tender appointment and hence the delay in starting the project. The key amendments requested, Chair, are the extension of the construction commencement, which is from March 2025 to September 2026, effectively adding additional 18 months, and then an extension of the construction duration from 12 months to 24 months, and an update to the project schedule, the pipeline route and diameter, and an increase in the loading arms from 1 arm to 3 loading arms. In our assessment, Chair, our key and primary concern was the fact that the project does remain significantly delayed as it stands, because the engineering design studies are still not yet finalized. The tender process to appoint an EPC has also not yet been reissued, and the revision of the project costs are also still unconfirmed. As a result of that, our assessment was that the requested 18-month extension, at least to commence construction, would still be insufficient based on the information available and the current status of the project. We did also consider other alternatives, the first one being the revocation of the license in terms of Section 26, but we concluded that we are not at that stage yet, as the project does remain necessary, and therefore that alternative was not recommended. We also considered requiring a resubmission of the amendment application, but that was also deemed to be inefficient as well. In our analysis, we found that despite these delays, the project does remain critical, especially for the ease of LPG imports into the Western Cape, and that once the project goes ahead, it will promote competition in a currently constrained market and potentially unlock the utilization of the Avidia Energy Facility in Saldanha, which hasn't been in operation since 2019. And therefore, Chair, our recommended approach is for NERSA to approve the amendment with an additional 6 months over and above what the applicant has applied for, particularly in relation to the extension of commencement, which would effectively give them in total 24 months extension to commence construction activities, which would then result in a due date of starting that project by March 2027. And then we maintain the 24-month construction period and accept the updated facility parameters subject to the final designs. And then we will also introduce enhanced monitoring mechanisms. With that said, Chair and members, it is recommended that the PPS approves the first amendment of the conditions of the license issued to SFF for the construction of an LPG marine loading facility and its auxiliary pipeline in Saldanha by extending the commencement and completion of construction activities, revising the facility details, and updating the project schedule within the license conditions. Also approved the decision and reasons for decision document, which is attached as Annexure A, and the addendum to the license conditions attached as Annexure 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mahamata. Members, any questions or comments? Noting that Madam Mahamata has already read the recommendation to the record. By show of hands, please. I see no hands. And I would like, here's Mr. Banda's hand. Mr. Banda, over to you, sir.
Yeah, Chair. Chair, I struggled a bit with the recommendation because if you read the analysis, especially on paragraph 6.15, I suppose it's clear that we wanted to add the 6 months to what the licensee is requesting. But if you come to the recommendation section itself, it doesn't say anything about the period of the extension. So I think we just need to be very specific in our recommendations, because by reading this recommendation, you think that we are approving what the applicant is requesting and not necessarily what the team is recommending, which are two different timelines. But the question that I had also is whether we can add to that timeline on our own, because this is not what the applicant has requested and has sort of like resisted attempts to be advised to extend the period. So I wasn't too sure whether we can on our own add that 6 months. Alternatively, I would have probably suggested that we then perhaps request the applicant to submit 4 monthly progress reports, and yeah. But then, yeah, depending on whether we've got the powers to extend that period, which I don't have an issue with. But Chair, yeah, those are my issues, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subanda. Madam Mahamata, may you respond?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the questions, Mr. Sibanda. We do take the enhancements proposed. We will revise our recommendation as we've put it, just to clarify that there was an additional 6 months that we'll be adding. But this is also outlined in the actual decision cover page on number 2. But we will then enhance it in the recommendation just so it is clear. In terms of whether we can add additional timelines, we have done it before previously, so there is precedence to add additional time over and above what the applicant has applied for. But then also the applicant is at liberty to start earlier, despite us adding that additional time. It's just a remedy for ourselves, even for the applicant as well, that we don't have to undergo this process should they not start as per the time that they've stipulated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Noting the response, you covered, Mrs. Banda.
Yeah, Chair, I'm covered. Chair, the decision page talks about the total period of 42 months, not what the additional period is being requested. But yeah, I take the point. Then that requires me to go back and calculate what that 42 months works out to be in terms of the additional period. But it's okay, Chair. I take the point. Thanks.
Thank you. But the enhancement should be there to assist with the clarity and make it easy for the reader to understand what this decision and be able to add these timelines, be very transparent around the issue of timelines. Thank you. With that, members, and having the recommendation read, by show of hands, if you support the recommendation with the enhancement as already articulated. Thank you, Madam Massetti, Mr. Majola, Mr. Sibanda, Advocate Chole. I also support. This then concludes item 6, taking us to item 7, which is the publication of the information paper on the phase 1 of the liquid fuels logistics and infrastructure vulnerability study on aviation fuel infrastructure. Say for approval to publish it accordingly. Over to you, Madam Twine, your team. Or is Madam Mahamat?
Yes, Chair, Madam Mahamat is still on the floor. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you again,
Over
Chair.
to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson and members. I would like to maybe firstly apologize for the way the document has been structured in the link. The actual study for consideration runs from page 42 to 66. So everything between page 5 and 41 is actually supporting documentation and was supposed to just be for reference and therefore should have been at the back end of this item. That said, Chair, members are requested to approve the publishing of this information paper on phase 1 of the liquid fuels logistics and infrastructure vulnerability study, which focused on aviation fuel infrastructure. The key point to highlight, Chair, is that this is a sanitized, non-confidential version of the study, which was noted by the committee. It removes all commercially sensitive information while preserving the system-level insights that can still be valuable to the sector. In terms of why we are publishing this, so historically, our data has been used mainly for licensing and compliance purposes, so in just using it internally only. And this study is a shift towards using our own data to more proactively generate regulatory insights that support planning and decision making. And for aviation fuel, this is particularly important because there's a small number of airports or facilities and supply corridors that dominate the system, and disruptions in these areas can have national supply implications. Secondly, the industry has changed significantly, and the refinery closures, the reliance on imports, and the change in the ownership of infrastructure is changing. As a result, the risks have shifted downstream into logistics. So we believe that publishing of such information ensures that these risks are visible, they are understood by industry, and that they can potentially be addressed collectively by stakeholders and policymakers. And lastly, Chair, there is also a challenge of limited access to reliable industry data, especially for new entrants looking to enter the industry. So by publishing these kind of studies, which will be the first of its kind from our side with subsequent papers, we will be contributing to the reduction of information asymmetry and the overall understanding of the mechanics of how the industry works and the logistical dependencies. With that said, Chair, it is recommended that the PPS approves the publishing of this information paper. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's also important, Madam Mahamat, to state that this also does not preclude ventilation of ventilating on such matters in subsequent stakeholder engagements, because we also need to engage with stakeholders in a more meaningful manner, such that there is a sharing of knowledge whilst observing any confidentiality matters, but at the same time ensure that we can engage robust and this industry make big contribution in this regard, and also as first line of implementation of government policy as a regulator. Members, any questions, comments? By show of hands? I don't see any hand. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation as read out by Madam Mahamat. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Machola. Thank you, Advocate Stole. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. I also support the publishing. We then move.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Chair, apologies, Chair, for this. But just one or two issues for me, and this doesn't take away, Chair, the decision that has been taken. If the team can just have a look, please, at the graphs, because some of them are missing, especially the vertical axis labels. If you can please attend to that. All your, I think from figure 3, 4, and 5, they don't show the vertical axis, but I also wasn't too sure whether we want to use the term sanitized. That can be interpreted in so many different ways, Chair. So I would perhaps propose that we don't use that term in the report. It's there on page 49 and elsewhere in the report as well. Otherwise, I'm fine with that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Just use the proper term there, maybe redacted, and then we'll make sure also EM and the team make sure that in terms of quality assurance, the graphs are clearly visible. The language is also right by way of taking it through the language editing. I take that at that. The decision has already been taken. So let's move on to item 8, which is the review of the complaints and dispute resolution procedures for the Petroleum Pipelines Regulation Industry Framework. Here for approval.
Chair, may I allow Mr. Lukele to take us through that one? Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Lukele.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to the members and everyone. Chair, the submission is here for approval, as already indicated. The current procedures were developed in 2020 and implemented in 2021, and these have been guiding PPR in handling dispute resolution matters. However, an internal audit review identified certain gaps, particularly the absence of a defined review cycle and missing timelines for some parts of the investigation process. In response, Chair, PPR then reviewed the procedures to strengthen governance and improve efficiencies and align with the latest delegation metrics, and also make sure that we draft it in such a way that the prevailing delegation metrics will be what is applicable. And the revised procedures, Chair, introduce clear timelines, improve process clarity, and a stronger document control measures. And the proposed revisions are outlined in Table 1 on page 4 of the submission, and further detailed in Annex 1, which reflects the track changes to the existing procedures. Chairperson, to date, NESA has handled only 2 formal complaints related to the petroleum pipelines industry using this the current procedures since 2021. As such, Chair, the review also incorporates lessons learned from other divisions, particularly the pipe gas division, Chair, and whose revised procedures were approved in April this year. In closing, Chair, the recommendations are on page 6 of the submission, and it's only one recommendation. It's for the PPS to approve the revised procedures attached to the submissions and as Annexure 2, which is the final version, and the track changes version, Chair, is attached as Annexure 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ukele. If you may please just revise comment. I think there was a mistake there in terms of page 6 of 7, the black stamped one, and then the green stamped one is 6 of 109. The institutional bodies or persons consulted should include the other regulatory divisions there in the main, noting that theirs in the same mode have already been dealt with and approved in their respective subcommittees or submitted therefore for approval. So please just update that accordingly, because we emphasize the need for not working in silos, but working as one NERSA. With that, members, any comments, questions, guidance to provide? Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the team for the improvements on the procedures. I take it that, Chairperson, these procedures, because they are investigative procedures, they should be applicable not only in respect of investigation pursuant to a complaint, but also our own initiated investigations. So the procedure that we follow, that must be legal and predictable, whether it is initiated by us, that investigation, or that investigation is conducted based on complaint, that it should be the same procedure that we must follow. So this, having clarified this, I'm questioning the scope of the procedure that is before us and the decision that is sought. And that decision states that this is just the procedure for complaints. Yet these are procedures for investigation. Why should they be different, or why should they not be applicable when we investigate similar or same conduct? But that conduct, we are the ones that became aware of that, and therefore we engage in an investigation. So for me, it is the issue of the scope first, and why it is limited only to complaints. That's the first thing. The second one, Chair, I think it is important again in terms of fair procedural aspects when we get to Section 25, I think in the PPA, with the one that talks to the issuance of the compliance notice or the notice of non-compliance notice. How we are going to deal with that, ensuring fairness, reason being that we are also going to be the regulator that deals with the next step being adjudication. So Section 25 sub 1 is the one of the non-compliance. So just to strengthen that part, it is, at least in guess, I know that RSU, in terms of the delegation matrix, we first of all test the veracity of the findings first. So by way of a letter, and then if there's no satisfactory response on the basis of Section 25(1), then we issue a notice of non-compliance. So I wanted to see that step in ensuring the strength and the legality of our procedure for fairness in that aspect, which is also going to be, which will be aligned with the step that is in the delegation matrix by RSU, just to safeguard the principle of fairness in our investigative procedure. So for me, that is the substantive issue that we need to carefully look at, if we can also just look into that. And then once we then issued and there is no response, say within 30 days, whatever the period is, we need to also be very clear for predictability and transparency as to at what stage do we then get to the step that will take us to the red card, meaning at what stage do we get to the adjudicative aspect, which is section 25 sub 2, where we now feel that nothing that even the response is not curing the deficiency and the non-compliance, even if they responded or they didn't respond within that time period. Now we go to the adjudicative aspect, where we now sit as a tribunal and then confirm the correctness of the non-compliance, and then also then impose a fine. At what point do we do that? Do we trigger that the invocation of section 25 sub 2, so that we do those two things, the hearing on the correctness of the non-compliance finding, and secondly, to impose a fine. So for me, those are the critical things that must be very clear, and so that there's predictability and transparency, as well as fairness in the procedures. I would like to stop there, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you, Mrs. Banda.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mr. Lukel. Chair, the first question that I have really is, do we have a system of classifying these complaints or the investigations that we undertake? Because looking at the various steps, I'm not too sure that every complaint and every investigation requires us to devote maximum resources and time, and that we always have to move from step 1 to step 5 before we start the preliminary investigation in step 6. So do we have a system of classifying? Because I can imagine that you could have certain complaints that can be fast-tracked and not necessarily spend, I don't know what was the timeline there between step 1 and step 5, but it looks like quite a period of time before we even start the preliminary investigation, and there's a lot of time that has elapsed there. There's 30 days, for instance, in step 4, there's 15 days or 14 days in step 5, we've got 14 days step 2. So I'm just asking, do we have a fast track process for certain complaints that we don't think really require us to spend this much of time before step 6 of the preliminary investigation? Even after the preliminary investigation, I suppose you can always find that there isn't much really to do, and you dismiss the matter. But in any case, looking at table 1 and item, I wasn't too sure whether there's a difference between item 3 and item 6 on table 1, page 4 of 109, or 4 of 7. Is there a difference between item 3 and item 6? If maybe it can be clarified there. But I also thought that item 5 the motivation doesn't really talk to it doesn't talk to the finding or perhaps the gap that was identified, because I'm reading the issue or the gap there to be saying that there's no timeline. There was no timeline for concluding a preliminary report. But in the motivation, we talk about the completion of an investigation process. So I'm failing to understand the alignment there between the gap and the motivation of the gap and what we are proposing as a solution. Because I thought the gap was that there was no timeline for the preliminary report, not the investigation itself in its totality. Whereas the motivation of the solution is that we are plugging that gap of not having a timeline for completing the investigation process. Yeah, if maybe that can be clarified for me. And then on the review, that's item 9 on page 5. So the review period says 3 years, but if you look at the actual amendment on page 8, it says 5 years, page 8 of 109. The review period. What else is there? Yeah, Chair, the other thing that I wanted to just establish, when we talk about so this is on page 12. Complaint means an expression of dissatisfaction by a customer or a licensee concerning discrimination regarding tariffs, conditions of access, failure to obtain access to petroleum pipelines, loading facilities or storage facilities, or failure to abide by tariffs set or approved by the authority. So the question that I have is, do we understand what is meant by discrimination surrounding conditions of access? Because I'm assuming that discrimination could also be in terms of different service offerings. For instance, delayed access or delayed delivery of product or poor service and the like. But it doesn't clearly come through, at least for me, that constitutes, a reason for lodging a complaint. Similarly, if you look at page 13, when we talk about the investigation into customer complaints. So I just had a question whether, similarly on page 14 regarding favorable conditions, do we have a full understanding of what these entail, and can we have examples of what these actually entail? That is the conditions of access. I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Advocate Tole, over to you, ma'am.
Just a quick one. It's in relation with the utilization of the arbitrator in resolving some of the complaints or disputes. On page 37, it says that there should be a formal written request to refer the matter to an arbitrator. And it says that will be approved. That request will be considered and approved by the relevant structures of NESA. I'm not sure what we mean by that because it's really not making it clear. I thought that the procedures were meant to also be clear in a manner that they really indicate a step-by-step process and be clear in what needs to be done. But if you're not stating which of that energy, or rather the NESA structure that is supposed to make a decision for a matter to be referred to an arbitrator, it may be a challenge. Probably we may enhance it. I'm not sure in the litigation guidelines what do we say, but we can try and align it to that. Otherwise, make it specific to say that it will be approved by the PPS or the FTRM for PPS, but let's just be specific and not be general. Otherwise, it will not assist in trying to implement that particular process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Advocate Tole. Over to you, Yemeno team for responses.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will start, and thank you to the members for the questions. I will start with the questions and comments from Ms. Masetti. With regard to the scope, perhaps maybe it's how we have presented it, but I would like to refer the members to page, I'm going to use the clean version or the one with flag changes being accepted. It's page 67. There, Chair, we do include own initiative investigations, and the scope, I think, is fully defined. It's not only limited to the complaints. Perhaps it's how maybe I introduced the matter, but the scope is fully defined from page 65 up until 67. It can also further, and specifically on own initiative, it's also on page 75. From paragraph 23, we have a process there for own initiative or own initiated complaints or complaints initiated by NERSA. So I think that's with that one. Then with respect to the issuance of Section 25 notices, Chair, on this one, from the PPR side, this is covered by a different procedure, which is our compliance procedures. And perhaps maybe what we can do to improve this one, we can just add reference to it. And we are also reviewing it, and it will come to the PPS once we have done with our internal consultations. So that will be dealt with under the compliance procedures. In it, we also reference even the approved tribunal rules. So we'll also to improve on this one, then, Chair, maybe we can just make a cross-reference to it in terms of any matters that need further compliance enforcement to be covered by that procedure. Then I will then move to Mr. Spanda's questions with regard to whether or not we have system in place to classify matters as we receive them. And Chair, here, and maybe the HOD will also come in. Currently, given the limited number of complaints we have dealt with so far, we don't have a formal way of classifying. But as part of the review, we did consider whether or not in this procedure we can have a section dealing with fast-tracked matters, not necessarily following this part. But then we advised against that by LAS, and unfortunately, I don't see some who assisted us on this one on the call. Maybe she may come in terms of the detailed reasons why. But on practice, Chair, there are certain matters where we agree with Mr. Spanda, which are straightforward. For instance, if there's a refusal of access and the information is there, we run with speed on that one, and there's no need to even follow the fully fledged investigation process. But then it's where these litigious matters that we follow this one. And maybe even my HOD will come in as well with this one. Then moving to the difference between item 3 and item 6, the only difference here, Chair, let me go to it quickly. Apologies, I'm just scrolling up. Item 3 deals specifically with interconnection, which was maybe we said it was not well captured. Well, the item 6, it's more on the access to loading, which we didn't have it initially. So it's maybe two different issues. Access is to use the existing infrastructure, but then the interconnection aspect will be the party who will be building their own infrastructure just to interconnect and use the perhaps maybe we can even improve it there. In terms of step 8, apologies. This one, let me leave it to my HOD. I think I can't see what I've scribbled here. On item 9, review period. Apologies, Chairperson. Initially, we're going with the 3 years review cycle, but during the review of the submission, it was then suggested that the 5 years may be the most appropriate, but then it can be done earlier. So we'll just make sure that across the document we refer to the 5-year review period. And then the one on page 12, let me leave this one to the team, just to indicate that in terms of the discrimination part, we are guided also by section 21 of the Act, but I will leave it to the team to assist there further. Then moving to Ms. Sitole's questions, I will just deal with actually the two of them. It's one, in terms of indicating clearly what are those relevant structures. Ma'am, here the idea was to try to de-link the procedure of the delegation matrix, which might change, and to avoid to necessitate a change on this one, we just try to stick to the relevant NESA structured as per the delegation matrix. Maybe that's what we're supposed to indicate. As currently these matters are approved by PPS, initially they used to be recommended by PPS to ER. So we just tried to de-link the two, but still reference the delegation matrix. Thank you, Chair. Then I would request the colleagues to come in on the others that I might have skipped.
Thanks. If you just come in, Martin, note what is also on the chat. The issue of fast tracking. Is the process itself enabling fast tracking, or there's a need to classify these reports and also deal with the issue of a pre-investigation report or initiation report, so that we are able to say now we can go on a fully fledged investigation, how that is taken care of. Over to you, Mr. Untit.
Thank you, Chair and members. I think firstly, thank you for the valuable comments, and I think most of them are enhancements which will definitely just improve the process. The classification, valid point, Mr. Sibanda, in our minds and how we do it, we fully agree with you, and I think that is one of the lacking parts that we said why we are removing. So definitely we'll just enhance it to say in what cases it can be expedited, and there's definitely an initiation report. On the 4 complaints that's been lodged with NERSA since its existence, almost 19 plus years, 4 complaints. There were initiation reports that did come to the committee, and then if there was no further grounds or not grounds. So this is just to maybe properly document it. But yeah, there is a need, and somebody for some of these things can't wait weeks and weeks for answer. They need the answer. The ship is in the harbor, or it's 5 or 10 days away from port, when there's could be access challenges. So we have to have that, and we will definitely prepare a table of category or classifying them. I was not certain the one that Mr. Lukele referred to me in terms of Mr. Sibanda. Maybe if it's the motivation in terms of the gap and not lining up, then we'll just enhance that. But I wasn't certain which one he referred to me. Ms. Sitoli, that's enhancements, and I think Mr. Lukeli explained it. Discrimination, yes, definitely section 21. And Mr. Sibanda, there's another matter that will be coming to the committee where the whole thing of discrimination and differentiating features, the members will recall such a paper served here, I think, a short while ago. I'm not sure if it was approved or but implemented, but definitely I think we'll enhance further because, like Mr. Kelly explains, the one in terms of section 21 applies. But yeah, I'm not sure if the rest of the team want to come in on discrimination, maybe from a tariff side, because they've led the differentiation features.
Thank you. I think it's important that we just also are conscious of time. But what I'm getting from the differentiation, Mrs. Banda, tend to be corrected, is that the understanding where the discrimination that is taking place to be just and fair. But I think that the stance should be of a nature that will encourage those that feel aggrieved to still lodge complaints instead of maybe restricting that by way of wanting these people to have gone through a great deal of their own justification that the discrimination is fair or not. Just to have that balance. At the same time, not to want to have frivolous complaints sent forth. And bearing in mind also that in most of these instances, before a complaint is lodged, or any dispute, there is even some kind of preliminary engagement with maybe one or two officials within NERSA, to the extent that the reason why also we've got fewer complaints lodged as such is because of that there is this intervention that arrests these complaints at once they are just budding. So these things we're able to nip them from the bud. But I would also like to, I haven't gotten clarity in terms of fast tracking from my side. Maybe if you can just quickly there, is the process good enough such that those that need the fast track, the process itself enables that fast tracking, or there should be a need for a separate process to fast track? Because this was also a question. And the initiation report before a fully fledged investigation, just quickly talk to those one directly, and then we should be able to move towards a decision. Oh, Madam Maseti, I see your hand is up. Just quickly weigh in.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, from my experience, where we have done the classifications and it helped, we can have perhaps the fast track, even if we insert a section in the procedures, or we attach an annexure. Then in the specific section of the procedures, we can then maybe have a paragraph or a diagram, and then says that let's make reference to annexure, say annexure 1 of these procedures, right? That's where you will then deal with the fast track, because that fast track, what it does is that because it will take them a bit of time, because they need to really understand the conduct and what goes into it. So what happens there is sort of rules of thumb, where an issue from their screening, it suggests that this is a purely a contractual matter. So that contractual matter is where the regulator needs not interfere with. Then on that one, obviously they will say that with that start from this step, the screening of the issue suggests this, and therefore instead of going this step, then you've got to form the other pathway to say that this is what we are going to do. So you've got that aspect. I'm using that deliberately, Chair, because that's the easiest one to follow, to understand. So they can have it as an annex, Chairperson, and just have maybe a paragraph that makes reference to that, how it will be dealt with. The initiation report is a separate one, but the procedures must show where the investigation starts. So they can also indicate that an initiation of an investigation, whatever they want to say, will be from us, that will be informed by whatever, like the reasonable suspicion that would have been determined, by the regulator, and a separate report will then be, considered in that regard, where it will deal with those aspects. When it comes to complaints that were received, obviously the complaints that are received, there must be a screening process of that complaint. So you just deal with the screening so that you know exactly what is the issue at hand, and whether the issue at hand will require so many resources, or the issue at hand will require fully fledged investigation. So it does need that screening aspect. So those are the kind of things, and then and therefore that non-complex or complex investigations must be referenced, must be dealt with in the procedures to indicate what they will consider to be complex and what they will consider to be non-complex. Contractual matters or the other matters, maybe they can classify them as non-complex matters that will follow the fast-track procedures, for example. Then the complex ones will then be the ones, maybe the price discrimination, because those cannot be underestimated. As you know, that some of them, they have taken us to court because of the lack of the proper differentiation on the tariff. So those are the kind of things, Chair, that I will suggest that we include. And I don't think that my first question, Chairperson, or second question on the principle of fairness that must really feature in the procedures, that we can just say that we must just reference to compliance elsewhere. I think it must be part and parcel of how we go about in these investigation procedures to ensure that the way that we conducted the process, it was conducted in a fair manner. And I've got a last point on this on the chart. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Massetti. Whilst I'm looking at all of this, I'm also need to look at the issue of balancing in terms of having a overarching procedure that then, in terms of implementation now, would be able to drill down and take out certain aspects to deal with them specifically as such, if you're talking of a contractual matter. Because at the same time, if you've got an overarching route to take, instead of then seeking firstly the classification, where it could happen that right at the beginning the classification is not right, and that they follow a different process altogether, which becomes a challenge. I think let's also, when dealing with these matters, noting that they've been also canvassed amongst the three divisions. I think for electricity, I think we've already approved them in as that we seek to balance and look at matters of implementation outside of the procedure itself in terms of tools to assist in the effective implementation of this procedure. And such a procedure, especially for PPR, you really need to find time to have training and retraining on it, or awareness, because it's going to be used once or twice a month, looking at the kind of stakeholder relations that you are driving within the division. But just weigh in, Mr. Lukele, on this, and then we move to our decision.
Thank you, Chairperson. From my side, I have nothing further to say other than to say the enhancements will be included. I will leave it to my HOD. Thank you, Chair.
Closing remarks.
Yeah, Chair, I think thank you for the valuable comments as need us to say some of these things, but definitely the fast tracking aspect and the ones the members we will be applying our minds. But we have consulted and had a look at the both the gas and the electricity procedures documents in starting or in doing our project. So we will do the enhancements as guided, and thank you for that, members.
Thank you. I'm then gonna go to the decision with those enhancements. If the PPS approves the revised investigations, complaints, and dispute resolution procedures for the petroleum pipelines industry attached to as Annex 1, I think it's going to also be important to publish that in the reading page once you have updated it to satisfy us that you have covered all the critical aspects that have been raised today. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Machola. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. Thank you, Advocate Tole. I also support Madam Maseti.
Chairperson, on this one, I would abstain for the reasons that I articulated. Just the core principles, Chairperson, of the Audi alteram patent rule that I believe they belong here, not in the compliance, so that we ensure that if we're talking procedures, there will be a procedural fairness step that features prominently in our procedures, which at this point, it is not there. And I said that step, RSU has already made it also easier, and it will be aligned with that, so that because we are the referee and the player, and therefore those things we need to cover them properly. They are on the chart, Chair, for the reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I take it that the procedure has got, even when it comes to the issue of the finding, because one of the things that is required is to get information coming from the complainant as well as the one that is, or the defendant, if I can use that term. And then also the findings, there will be preliminary findings, and then there will be final findings, which will then deal with the better principles that you're referring to, which is giving the other party the right to be heard. I don't know if what I'm saying persuades you enough to note that that principle is enshrined. Thank you. All right, let's then proceed. Concludes item 8. We're moving to item 9, which is the allocation mechanism for uncommitted capacity of airports. Company South Africa Limited, South Africa licensed storage facilities. That is AXA's licensed storage facilities. Mr. Mapoli, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members and colleagues. The purpose of the submission is to request the PPS to approve the allocation mechanism for uncommitted capacity to the Airports Company South Africa SOC Limited, AXA, Petroleum storage facilities located across 6 provinces. In 2021, NERSA approved AXA's allocation mechanism for uncommitted capacity for the storage facilities at Cape Town International Airport, King Shaka International Airport, and OR Tambo International Airport. On 23 March 2026, AXA submitted a revised allocation mechanism, which included the recently 5 licensed storage facilities as listed in Table 1. AXA allocation mechanism was assessed for compliance with all requirements of Regulation 38 and meet all the requirements of Regulation 38. AXA also stated in its allocation mechanism that the facility will be allocated to customers on the first come, first served basis by applying the use it or lose it principle as prescribed by the regulations. It is recommended that the PPS approve the allocation mechanism for uncommitted capacity at the AXA Petroleum storage facilities located at Bramfisher Airport, Cape Town International Airport, George Airport, King Paulo Airport, King Shaka International Airport, Kimberley Airport, OR Tambo International Airport, and Uppington International Airport, and also approve the publication of the allocation mechanism on NERSA's website. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mapoli. Any questions, comments, guidance members? By show of hands? I don't see any hand. May you just please raise your hand in support of the, if you do support the recommendation. Oh, before we go there,
Chair,
I see Mr. Sbada's hand.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Over to you, sir.
Chair, no problem, Chair. I don't have an issue. I know this is an allocation mechanism for AXA, but we do have information around tariffs, and I noted that the three biggest airports have tariffs that are more than 10 years old. And if AXA is aiming to accommodate third parties, how are they going to do that if they don't have current tariffs that are approved? But also, I wasn't too sure what is the purpose of having two columns in table 3, because I guess what we are concerned about really is just the current tariff. But I saw that you've got the previous tariff and the current one. I wasn't too sure what the reason for that is, but my key issue really is the three biggest airports. Those tariffs are more than 10 years old, Chair, and that's a concern for me. Thanks.
Thank you. If you may just quickly weigh in terms of the question. EM, as you know that there are these also tariff applications underway. Oh, yes, Madam Bogo. Weigh in,
yes,
ma'am.
thanks. Chair, and good morning. Chair, I just wanted to confirm that we have received applications from AXA and we're currently processing those applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Banda, you covered?
Kinda doesn't remove the fact that these are more than 10 years old and they should have applied much earlier, Chair, but yes, better late than never. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. I think it's the important thing is around the issues of compliance monitoring and enforcement. As the team has been following up on these tariffs that have not been applied for, I think it's just to put impetus to say, team, please make sure that you follow on the instructions for these licensees to apply for new tariffs. Having said that, let's move to the recommendation, which is for the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee to approve the allocation mechanism for uncommitted capacity at the AXA Petroleum storage facilities located at Bramfisher Airport, Cape Town International Airport, George Airport, King Paulo Airport, King Shaka International Airport, Kimberley Airport, OR Tambo International Airport, and Uppington International Airport, and the as well as approve the publication of the allocation mechanism on NERSA's website. By show of hands, members, if you do support the recommendation. Thank you, Advocate Tole, Madam Massetti, Mr. Machola, Mr. Sbanda. I also support. This then concludes item
Chairperson, Chairperson, on a lighter note, I see that David Stirman Airport has not been included. It's actually international airport in PE. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. We move on to item 9. Item 10, decision and decision on the tariff application by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd for its secunda to NATREF integrated pipeline, SNI pipeline, for the period 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027. Over to you, Madam Bowen, your team.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS to set a tariff of 64.64 cents per litre for Sasol Oil Secunda to NATREF integrated pipeline for the period 1st July 2026 to 30 June 2027, and to also approve the decision and reasons for decision attached as Annexure A. In this tariff application, Sasol has applied for a tariff of 65.56 cents per litre for the 2026-27 financial year, which translates into an increase of 54.66% from the 42.39 cents per litre set tariff for the period 1st July 2025 to 30 June 2026. And the increase is mainly due to the 2024-25 clawback value due to Sasol Oil achieving lower volumes when compared to the forecasted volumes due to a low demand at the NATREF and an increase in actual operating cost. And the high actual operating cost was mainly due to additional security service cost to reduce product theft, leaks, and illegal excavations. And furthermore, Sasol Oil has also an approved financial instrument and has included the land rehabilitation cost in its operating cost for the first time. The difference in the tariff applied for by Sasol Oil and that determined by NERSA is mainly due to the different values in REB, the weighted average cost of capital, and operating costs. It is therefore recommended that PPS set the tariff of 64.64 cents per litre for Sasol Oil SNI and also approve the decision and reasons for decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Mahupela. Any comments, questions, guidance members? By show of hands, please. Mr. Sibanda, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team. Chair, perhaps just as an enhancement, if the team could try to, where we show the differences between our calculation and that of the licensee, I think it will help just to have a column that shows the percentage differences, not in every instance, but I think in those key variables, like the RAP and the work calculations. I think that will help, and especially operating expenses as well. I think if we could just have a column that shows the percentage differences there, that will help. And here's my issue here. Perhaps it's more of a policy issue than anything else, and I guess this also touches on the gas industry. But if you look at the work calculation on table 4, there's a difference of more than 10% between our calculation and that of Sasol. But because our methodology just considers the final output of the tariff, and if it falls between -5 and 10%, then we accept that. And I'm just wondering whether shouldn't we also be looking at the key components of the building blocks here, especially the work, because that has got a bearing or is quite relevant in terms of what the licensee earns at the end of the day. So for me, that is quite important. If you go to the difference in the tariff on table 10, there's a difference of 1%. But if you look at the rand value in terms of the difference in the allowable revenue, you're talking perhaps close to 50 million. And hypothetically, if the difference was 8%, for instance, we'll still have accepted it. But in rand terms, you probably will be talking more than 100 million rand. And for me, that's quite significant. It's not small change. And Chair, these are our rules that we have made. It's not the law. It's something that we've come up with. It's a judgment call. And I'm not sure whether perhaps we should be revisiting some of these, because we only have a percentage threshold and we don't have a value, a rand value threshold. And it might assist, and like I said, it's probably more of a policy issue and not necessarily limited to this application, but it's just an organizational wide issue. For me, I think it would make sense to have a hybrid threshold that looks not just at the percentage differences, but also the rand value, because a 1 cent per liter difference does make much of a difference or has an impact to the users. But if you look at it just from a percentage difference point of view, perhaps you might think, oh, it's just 1%, or well, it's just 8%, well, it's 9.5%. It's less than the 10% threshold that we have in our methodology. So I'm just raising this, Chair, to say I think we need to have a very careful look at that. I'm pretty sure we've had applications where the differences in the allowable revenue were quite significant, but because the percentage difference is less than 10%, we just accept it. So I'm just raising this, Chair, to say perhaps both petroleum pipelines and gas, that's something maybe that we may want to have a look at. But I also had a concern looking at the increase in the operating costs over time. These have been increasing quite substantially. Sorry, I can't remember what table that is, table 5 on page 28. So these have been increasing like over time, and I know they are related to things like security and land rehabilitation and stuff like that, but I'm just uncomfortable with those increases, Chair. But yeah, I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Masetti, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm covered by Mr. Sibanda on that issue of that 10% range. I know that it also affects other divisions. Gas is one of them. Perhaps it's something that we now in these times, because there is an extra cost, even if it's less than that 10%. And it never used to be sort of a standard thing that we sort of publicize out there. But I think we need to going back to the drawing board and look at this accumulatively in terms of the effect and in the way that now our own licensees know that they can increase it, but less than 10%, and that they benefit from that sort of extra windfall revenue So it's something that we need to just look at it and see how we can mitigate against that. Either we apply a strict sort of rule on that, and we'll hear the legal people how they will interpret that, to the extent that we have powers to approve, and this is strictly on the powers to approve, not to set. If it were to set, things will be different, but it's something that we need to consider. So I'm covered by Mr. Sibanda and the examples that he made to demonstrate the adverse effect of this. Then, Chairperson, on the issue of the increased operational expenditure, in particular, the increase that is caused by the product theft. I do not think that as a regulator, we need to automatically accept or compensate for the cost related to the lost product. I don't think that it should just be something that we just say that, oh, well, it's a lost, is due to theft, and therefore they are trying to recover this through the tariff without also considering the impact of allowing such cost on consumers. How do we protect consumers in such instances? That's the first thing. The second thing is that we are not told how the team has applied prudence as well as efficiency standard in assessing this cost. That we just hear the reason from the licensee that, well, there are some costs that related to the product that has been lost due to theft. Yet from our side, what have we done to test this from a prudence as well as efficiency? And in addition, why is this not treated as something that should be managed operationally by the licensee? For instance, we know that for their infrastructure, just like we say in municipalities and so forth, whatever happens there, that they are supposed to protect their infrastructure. In these days, there's also the drones that are doing surveillance and all of those things. Why are they not investing in those kind of things so that they monitor and protect their infrastructure? Why is it that we are not using that as something that management in these licenses are able to control? Also, if, for instance, they pick up quickly from their software that there is a product leakage that they are seeing, and then make sure that they've got resources that will be deployed quick enough to respond to that change that they are seeing from the software that they are using. So there are practical things here, and it simply says to the regulator, do not automatically accept these things. You can't just take this risk and pass it on to consumers or those that are paying the tariffs without holding the licensee accountable as to what is it that you have done. Why is this not something that you could have managed from your side? So, and also be able to test the quantum of the cost that they are claiming that they must just be added as part of the operational expenses. So I am of the view that the team on this one, it does need to do a bit of work, even if for now we are going to allow it, and it's not supposed to be a standard thing, by the way, that will go on and on. So even if for now we allow it subject to this rigorous prudence, post-prudency assessment to be done, as well as efficiency, and subjecting this to the audits, in particular when we're scoping the audit exercise to be done. I hope, Chairperson, I also provided sufficient guidance in terms of what kind of factors to consider in testing and in checking the efficiency and prudency of the cost relating to the lost product or theft. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think members, on some of the things that you've put forth, there are matters to be dealt with in an even-handed manner, and also in a harmonized manner amongst these three regulatory divisions and the three sectors that we regulate, requiring also engagement not based necessarily on an application or one submission in isolation, that we look possibly also talk to us going back to the principles, taking from Mr. Sibanda, one that says look at the rent value, but also look at the percentage in terms of the figures that fit into the rent value. Look at that percentage, juxtapose it with the volumes that are involved, because a 1% of 10 million is not the same as a 1% of 100 rand. So I'm saying I take it that these are the things that need to be looked into, and also not to straitjacket things in the sense that it's a judgment call, and you need to have some kind of built-in discretion, not necessarily legislate that, but put boundaries and be able to work within those boundaries to make a judgment call, to guide a judgment call. And I take it that the issues of prudency, and efficiency in terms of how we look, the issue of theft is a problem in any society. If you want to have development, you want progress, you ensure that law enforcement leads in that instance. In our country, we've seen how things have happened of late. We've even seen what has happened with people even stealing traffic lights. Now, if the product price goes up, people thefts are recorded, and I don't want to go into that. But also how to deal with those aspects that are actually linked to other national issues. But the team, you need to respond to that. I'm just highlighting these things because there must be also engagement outside of this application further to refine. And I take this as also that Secretariat will assist in terms of noting them as action items that must flow out of this, being looked at in conjunction with other divisions and applied also consistently in these three divisions. Over to you for the response.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
That HOD, then Mahopela will follow.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to, regarding Mr. Sibanda's comments and questions, yes, Chairperson, we will enhance the submission and other tariff application submissions to show these percentage differences. And then with regards to the comment on the differences between the tariffs applied for and what we would have determined as NESA. Chair, I think Dr. Maposa is also here, and we have also guided that we should tackle this at an organization-wide review. So we will engage RA and then see how we start the process and see it to finish. And thank you for that comment. But then, Chair, I also wanted to give members comfort in that the legislation, which is the Petroleum Pipelines Act, actually allows us to set tariffs for petroleum pipelines. So this particular application is not affected. So whatever tariff NESA determines for pipelines is the one that would be set. But then it does affect all other petroleum loading and petroleum storage facility tariff applications. So we will definitely look into that. There were a number of questions from or comments from Ms. Masid regarding the discomfort regarding this increase in the product theft related costs. And I think in the end, she then requested that we conduct this rigorous prudency assessment after this to ensure that the costs in themselves are really prudent and efficient. Chair, I commit to start that process, coupled with what you had requested us to do, which is also doing pre-application engagements with SASO before the lodgement of the applications. So we will also embark into this one. I don't know, Ms. Mahopela, if you wanted to address specific questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Also wanted to confirm that the Sasol Oil does submit the audited RFRs, which we also checked as to whether the auditors has confirmed the value, and it is included. And just to also indicate that when we do the analysis, we also analyze the Sasol Oil does submit the investigation theft report, which we also take into consideration. And due to the theft, they did indicate that during the 2024-25, they had to increase the in-person security and also the drones that they had previously. Thank you.
Thank you for responses. Members, you've noted the responses. If there are any follow-up questions, comments, otherwise we'll move to the recommendation, which reads as follows. It is recommended that the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee sets a tariff of 64.64 cents per litre for the Sasol Oil SNI pipeline for the period 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027, and approve the decision and reason for decision on the SNI pipeline tariff application attached as Annex A hereto. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation, noting those enhancements and action items that need to be followed up by the team. Thank you for your hands, Mr. Machola, Madam Massetti, Mr. Sibanda, Advocate Stolle. I also support. This then concludes item 10 and takes us to item 11, which is the decision and reasons for decision on the tariff application by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd and BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd for their jointly owned petroleum storage facility in Arrow Road, Gauteng Province, for the period 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027. Over to you, Madam Somi. Madam Bogo, weigh in.
Thank you, Chair. I had a problem with unmuting. Thank you. Good morning, members, members of the public and the staff. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS members not to approve tariff applied for by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd and BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd for their petroleum storage facility located in Al Road, Gauteng Province for the period of 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027, and approve the decisions and the reasons for decisions document attached here as Annex A. Sasol Oil and BPSA's tariff application was initially submitted on 26 November 2025. Several engagements were held with the applicant at the technical level. The inconsistencies with the applicable tariff application were pointed out. However, the applicants provided that NERSA's concern will be implemented in the next tariff application. The submission was then declared adequate on the 2nd of February 2026, following receipt of all required information. The detailed assessment of the tariff application is provided from page 7 of the cover submission. NERSA determined a tariff of 17.93 cents per litre for the 2026-27 financial year, which is approximately 16.95 lower than the tariff applied for by the applicant. The difference between NERSA's determined tariff and the tariff applied for by Sasol is mainly due to the difference in the REP values calculated by the applicant and NERSA, emanating namely from the difference consumer price index forecast values used in trending the assets. NERSA used the most recent CPI forecast for the period under review, which is 4.20%, while the applicant used the latest CPI forecast available at the time the tariff application was compiled, which is 4.45%. The difference in the weighted average cost of capital values determined by the applicant and NERSA is due to the difference of cost of equity and cost of debt determined by both parties, mainly due to the applicants using outdated economic data. And the difference in cost of debt is due to the difference in gearing ratios and CPI applied by both parties. The difference in tax values determined by the applicants and NERSA is due to the different methods used by both parties. The applicant used the national tax method as prescribed in the outdated tariff methodology version 4, whereas NERSA applied the flow-through method as specified in version 5 of the tariff methodology. Consequently, there is a 62% difference in the calculation made by both parties. It is therefore recommended that the PPS members disapprove the tariff applied for by Sasol Oil and BPSA for the petroleum storage facility in Al Road for the period of 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027, and approve the decisions and the reasons for decision document attached here to as Annex A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Somi. Members, you've got the presentation. And now to your questions, comments, or guidance. By show of hands, please. I don't see any hands. Having noted that, I would then like to proceed with the recommendation, which recommendation has been read out by Madam Somi. Just to capture it, the subcommittee informed by the applicant for the petroleum storage facility in period 1 July 2026 to 30 June 2027, and to approve the decision and reasons for decision attached here to as Annex A. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Majola, Madam Massetti, Mr. Sibanda, Advocate Tole. I also support taking due regard of the comments and guidance provided in the in item 10, the preceding submission. That is also done, taking that into account. We'll then move on to the next one, which deals with the guidelines on tariff differentiation features acceptable to NERSA. It's here for approval. Madam Boko.
Chair, Mr. Gabo.
I can go ahead, Chair.
Oh, Mr. Kaba, you may wait.
Yes, Chair.
Mr. Kaba.
I'll try and be very brief, Chair. Chair, the submission had already been noted and deliberated on the 12th of March 2026. And there was the approval, the recommendation of the approval was then deferred to the April PPS. But however, due to the outstanding information which Sasol needed to submit to NERSA after the public hearing that was held on the 9th of March 2026, then we had to defer a little bit to the March PPS, which we all know that didn't take place. We then initiated the round-robin process in terms of the submission to get approval, and I was under the impression that it was still under that process. However, nonetheless, it is part of this agenda, and we have tabled it here. The members required that the differentiated features require capacity to be enhanced and to reflect the unintended consequences and foreclosure in terms of the take-or-pay impact, including the adverse impact and customer distance, interruptible supply. The point of supply also be included as a differentiation feature as part of the guidelines, and these enhancements were duly incorporated into the updated guidelines document, and including Sasol Oil's response to the previous member comments in the discussion documents as well, attached here to as Annex D. Refer members to page 10, which is table 1 of the submission, where we present the action items as instructed by the members in the public hearing, as well as Sasol Oil's response and NESA's response and implementation thereof. Without wasting time, Chair, we would like the energy regulator to approve the guidelines. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kaba. I'm not so sure if someone wanted to add something. EM?
No, Chair, at this stage, nothing from my side, thanks.
Thank you. Members, comments, questions, guidance, please. Any hands? We will then move to the recommendation. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation, or maybe let me first read it out, or you may assist me, Mr. Kaba. It seems to be stuck here. It's a recommendation on page 15 of 124. It is recommended that the PPS approves the guidelines on tariff differentiation features acceptable to NERSA attached here to as Annex A, and the decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annex B. By show of hands, members.
Secretary, please, can you inform the chairperson that he's
Thank you.
on mute?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I note Madam Maseti, Machola, Advocate Tola, and Mr. Sibanda. I also support the approval of these guidelines. This then concludes of item 12, which is the last item in the open meeting. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. Just that alone also helps us to move towards continuous improvement in the way we do things. Also like to thank the members for their questioning, their comments, and the guidance that they provide to this team. Thank this team, the rest of the NERSA management and staff for the work that they put in, the effort. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you'll also be moving from strength to strength, improve every day. With that, also want to thank the Secretariat for the sterling work that she's doing. From my side, thank you. The meeting stands adjourned. If you may assist IT